Better late than never, I suppose. And I want to start this one with a story because Linda Carter was a guest star as the president, and she's most famous for being Wonder Woman in the old '70s show. And when I was a little kid, like really little, like three, four, five, I used to watch that show. I'm assuming it's on syndication because I wasn't born till '82. But and this is an embarrassing story that my mom likes to tell other people, so I'm just gonna beat her to the punch, just in case the off chance she watches this and decides to tell other people about it. But like I said, I'm like a little kid. The kids say the darndest thing age, and I'm watching the Linda Carter Wonder Woman show. And I have no memory of this, but like I said, I've heard my mother tell a dozen times. Do people probably don't want her to tell it to? Ugh. So I'm a little kid watching the show, probably sitting way too close to the TV, and Wonder Woman's running off to do something. And I want to say it was shot. My mom said it was shot in slow motion. I don't know, but Wonder Woman is running. So me, my little young self, apparently said something along the lines of, "Wow, she has a lot of breasts." Now let's talk about Supergirl. Oh yeah, again, this season so far is just knocking them out of the park. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of disappointed Linda Carter wasn't in it more. But what scenes she was in, she really stole the show. She was great. She was very presidential. No other way to say it, really. Um, and I definitely hoping she comes back with that last little bit they threw in at the end. I I've read bits and pieces online. The big four episode crossover between the four DC shows on the CW. It's going to happen either late November or early December. I forget exactly when. Is based on a story called Invasion, and that revolves heavily. Apparently, that heavily features Daxamites. So I'll get to that in a sec. So I'm wondering if what happened there with the president at the end is set up for that. But as for the Decamites, our sleeping beauty, the sleeper has awakened. And he was actually really good. He was surprisingly charming. I'm not familiar with the actor. I don't know what else he's been in, what I might have seen him in. But he's just, I don't know. He's just the way he was so casual when Supergirl wasn't trying to interrogate him. It was really cool. And we got to see him. Again, it wasn't, they had a lot to do in this episode, so it wasn't heavily featured. But I do like we saw him slightly weirded out by his powers, learning how to use his powers as he went. So, that was really cool. And one could argue that it's out of character, but I actually really liked that Kara was essentially racist. Because one, we got the setup for her to learn it. Two, it shows even the super people are flawed. You know, and to me, it would make sense that she's so opening and welcoming on Earth because she has no reason not to be. But, well, this is getting way more topical than I ever intended this show to get, but it fits with what happened in this show. This is just billboard I used to see all the time when I was a kid. That featured like a little white boy and a little black boy hugging, and this billboard said, "Nobody is born a bigot." And that's and so to me, it just shows how much Kara really is a Kryptonian, how much she really is a fish out of water on Earth. Granted, we're watching this 10 years later, so she's pretty much acclimated. But when, Krypton comes up, she's still very much home. She misses home. That was the point of For the Girl Who Is Everything. And though, as like I said, I don't think they hit the point very well. So to me, it makes perfect sense that, growing up, she would be pretty well ingrained that Daxamites are bad. She's not going to be able to let go of that immediately. she would fit the ideal better if she just like we saw flashbacks or explained to her she never quite believed it. But I don't know. I just thought this made her a more compelling character, especially when the end where she admits she was wrong. We need stuff like that, especially nowadays with what all's going on. Like I said, this episode was almost heavy-handed in its topicalness. And while it may felt a little awkward, and not the show itself was awkward. I thought it handled everything fairly well. Made some actually compelling points for both sides with Lena Luthor. So incidentally, glad to see her back. It's just wasn't expecting. I was not expecting the show to get political. And I guess you could argue that it didn't really. It's telling stories about aliens, but I mean, the parallels are just. Yeah, can't wait to listen to Supergirl Radio and hear what they have to say about it. I really enjoyed Mon-El. I was spoiled about who he was, but I kept forgetting. Mostly because I kept forgetting he was there. But so I saw the twist of the Dax, him being actually Daxamite coming. I do like, because as far as I know, this isn't this case in the comics. I don't know if they've ever established what made up planets are and what made up star system with each other in the comics. So as far as I know, Daxam and Krypton are nowhere near each other in the actual DC universe, but I like that they were sister planets here because it makes sense why both because that way it makes sense why both people get powers under the yellow sun and such similar powers at that. I mean, yeah, there is that whole thing about, oh, yet another alien race that looks exactly like humans, but that trope's existed for so long, it really doesn't seem like it's worth getting upset over. So, I do like that change. I do like that so far he hasn't manifested all of Kara's powers. And honestly, I guess this would be the one downside of the episode is that obviously wasn't heat vision, or at least not the same heat vision effects. So I just it doesn't make sense to me why Kara couldn't recognize that. Hey, these aren't beams of white light coming at me; these are like fireballs. But I think that's one of those things where they tried to make it different so it'd be obvious for the viewer. But I don't know. I really like the alien, even though I never heard of her, but she was hot, if you'll pardon the pun. So, Maggie Sawyer, really excited to see her because I don't know if I've mentioned this in his vlogs before. Supergirl will always be my most favorite DC character, but Batwoman was a very, very close second. So I was very excited to see her fiance show up. As and I also appreciate her ties to the Superman comic book franchise. She was in the '90s cartoon and everything. I was surprised she wasn't blonde. I mean, I had heard she'd been cast, but I didn't pay attention to the news. I didn't even read the actress's name. I just heard, "Hey, Maggie Sawyer's in the show," and I was like, "Yay!" But yeah, she was badass. She was great. I loved her. Love that she was hung out in the alien bar, and I love her backstory about how she related to aliens better than humans. Because yeah, it made perfect sense. And this guy brings to the something that came up, I think, before the premiere. Um, Heard this story on Supergirl Radio, so when I was going through the archives trying to catch up, so I think it was before the premiere, but anyway. But the producers, showrunners announced that this season a character is, and I don't know if they said Flash or Supergirl. Everybody just surmised Flash or Supergirl based on the context clues, but they said a character was going to come out gay, And they had always intended for this character to be gay. They just didn't have time to do it well in, last season. Now, again, listening to Supergirl Radio, they pretty much well, they never stated what show, all signs either point to Supergirl or The Flash. And obviously, since it's a Supergirl podcast, they were talking about who they think it is on Supergirl. And Alex's name was like the top runner. Came up as and yeah, I think Alex. Oh God, excuse me. Okay, I think Alex is going to be the character because her dating like never came up. Two, they said they didn't have time, and I've mentioned it a few times so far this season, and I know I mentioned it last season, but season 1 of Supergirl was kind of a mess pacing-wise. Really felt like it was arguing with itself what kind of show it wanted to be, which, again, does not seem to be a problem anymore. So, yeah, I think it's Alex, because, again, the other point I wanted to make is that, or did I make that point? Alex dating never really came up. Some people pointed out her sort of flirty relationship with Maxwell Lord last season, which, again, I would like some kind of reference to. You finally make me like the guy, and then you don't bring him back. But, there was never. Again, I'm still going through the first season again on Blu-ray, but I don't remember anything indicating it was mutual for Alex. She cared about him. She was interested in him until she threatened her sister. But I don't remember like it being obvious. Oh, Maxwell, you're so dreamy. And just again, I am not normally the guy who says these two characters interacted, therefore they are destined to be together. No, I don't normally do that. But there was definitely more than just the we didn't like each other before, and now we have a mutual respect for each other. I definitely feel like there was a different type of tension there, especially toward the end. So, that was great. I'm pretty sure Alex and Maggie are going to get together at some point, which I am all for because both were great characters. That was a great introduction to Maggie. Alex / Maggie forever. Like I said, they're getting great stories, if short stories, out of James running Catco. His power struggle with Snapper Carr was great. Snapper Carr still delightfully grumpy. Carr trying how to be an objective reporter. We didn't get much win in this episode, but he's still wonderful. Again, this show is just it's been so good so far. There hasn't been any unevenness yet. It's just all been solid, just really good. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I covered all my bases this time, and I really need to blow my nose in case you couldn't tell. So I will catch you guys next week.